at this point, I'm going to put something to you, man. I want to refer you back to that conversation about the private and the government universities. Of course, we read about former ex-president Olusegun Obasanjo indicating and advising the federal government that the program isn't going to be really complete in itself if private universities aren't covered in it fully. And of course, you try to touch on it, and of course, when President Olusegun Obasanjo said that, the ex-president Olusegun Obasanjo, people went for some went for the messenger, some went for the message. And in going for the messenger, of course, it was like, well, you didn't even do anything of this sort. In going for the message, the question was like, the man owns a private university, who should actually benefit from this, because you're getting your payment straight from federal coffers. And if people know that they can get a loan to pay it, in fact, a lot more people would actually apply to private universities. What do you say to that, man, in terms of the cover? So what I'm trying to say in this instance is that President Olusegun Obasanjo doesn't appear to be a good messenger of that gospel, because of his own background and because he owns a university, a private university, which brings him profit. But as a private citizen, Awokoya, what do you say, man, to this? Do you think it should actually cover the private universities, or do you think it is good as it is? Vis-a-vis, you already spoke about the consequences in terms of demand for more places. But could it actually be a good thing as well, whereby people now feel confident enough, rather than Japan, let's call it Japan, into the private universities? And what took a lot of people there anyway was that you knew that your academic calendar was sacrosanct, more or less, except for an act of God. But now that can people be Japan? What's on this?
Yeah, let me just address one or 2 points. In the olden days, private universities had a sacrosanct timeline. Unfortunately, not anymore. ASU has managed to infiltrate all the universities.
Even private universities, man.
Precisely. So most of the time, when there is a strike, it's also happening there now.
My God.
So it is sad, but that is the honest truth. It was based on that Konwa umbrella, to break ASU, Konwa came up, and luckily Festus Keyamo of old and the Ngige managed to register Konwa, which is a rival or another association of lecturers in university. And Konwa is against strikes per se. So they are not sacrosanct anymore. But but to come back to your point about private universities benefiting, it isn't me that I want them not to even benefit right now. Sawyer himself has said they are going to do it in phases. And the first phase is going to be federal universities alone. So already private universities cannot hang their hopes on a loan coming to them at present. In future, it should. And that is a flaw, because people who live abroad know that it doesn't matter what university you are going to. Once UCAS has given you entry into a particular university, whether private or public or whatever, you get your loan. And the loan is not coming from, it's not supposed to be coming from the federal government. It's supposed to be coming from an institution run by managers, which should have interface of banks, that will just send the students fees to the universities. So they shouldn't think that they're getting the money they're getting the payment on behalf of a student. So it's the name of the student who is paying, because it's the student that is going to pay back the loan to federal government. So it's the student that is still going to be on their record as supplying them that money. And whether they get it from the parents or they get it from the students, no university should be bothered about it so long as they are getting their money. So whether more students will now go to private depends on the fee, which takes me back to what I said at the beginning. that without the federal government telling us what they are funding and to what level, and whether this is a flat fee for everybody, they still need to, the justification, the business case still has to be that how much am I spending as FGN on a university student in my institution now? Not how much I'm charging them because I'm subsidizing it, but how much is the total amount that I'm using for them. And if it comes to 2 million, then there will be no distinction between them and the private university. I hope you are getting my point.
Yes, ma'am.
But if they leave it the same amount they are subsidizing, then they have done nothing. They are still going to be subsidizing the university, and what the loan the child is going to be paying back is going to be, it's just like the feeding allowance. Because right now, universities, all they pay is like total of 287,000, some 170 something thousand, some 300. I don't see any federal government university where the fees, the totality of all their crazy charges has gone up to 500,000. I don't. I've checked most of them. So if it is 500,000, this federal government wants them to take a loan for, it's ridiculous. Then you now add their feeding expenses. Let's say you give them 50,000 per month, and that's 600,000. 600 for 500, that takes you to 1.1 million. So if a child is going to be in university for 4 years, you are saying that you are going to be paying them 4.4. But we all know that you are not spending 1.1 million on that child, because you look at all the universities, the lecturers, the repairs, TED fund, all this. So if the federal government calculates properly what it takes to keep a university student, they will find out that it might just be as much as the private sector. In which case, why segregate anything? So I'm not yet sure what their plans are. Do you want financial autonomy for the universities? You will need to change your laws. Because right now, the laws of the federal government university does not allow them to charge fees, commensurate market value fees. So they will need to do all those. So I'm not yet sure. And this always bothers me. It always bothers me that we put a leg into something that is not clear. And then we end up in implementation, creating more problems. Why would you be charging students loan? What is it that you're giving them loan if it's not for you to reduce some of your own expenses? ASU will come back again and still be fighting for more increase in fees, for this, for that. Whereas if ASU is using these fees and everything to pay itself, the federal government will be free.
I've got loads of questions I want to ask you, but I'm going to give the room to, like I said, this is the new design, to our panel to be able to come in with their comments and their own questions, starting with PLIDE Transformational, and then we go on to the others. So PLIDE Transformational, get ready. But I want to ask you this question, man. Because we're talking about this policy now at the inception of the presidency of Senator Bola Ahmed Tinubu. It was like maybe they floated a kite. Was it a kite floated, or was it an accidental report? Was it a false report that the universities had somehow been given some semi-autonomy, so to say, to apply charge, to charge students fees that were to a large extent commensurate to the market value, quote and unquote. And so when you have this, the question that comes from so many people is how, because you're suggesting, man, that government has got to be able to, if government is giving these loans out, it has to be reducing its own overhead.
Precisely.
In order for it to make sense.
Yes.
But you and I know, man, let's say tomorrow, your alma mater, the second best university in Nigeria, because mine is the best. The second best university in Nigeria, which is Great Ife.
Which is where?
Yeah. The second best university in Nigeria, which is Great Ife.
No. Don't worry. We know ourselves as the best.
Okay. Okay, we know you as the second best one.
There is only one university in the whole of Africa. Oba, one university.
Yes.
Okay. This is a general platform, but that thing Mudashiru said, I think the SecGen, the SecGen will just send him a fine of just not much 10 naira, once he pays it. Okay. Yeah. So the question, man, the Great Ife, assuming tomorrow that Great Ife suddenly comes out and says tuition fees 6.5 million per student.
Yeah.
And every other thing, maybe medical students now, and says medical students, 10.6 million.
Yeah.
There will be riots on the streets, man.
Of course now.
So how does the government do this?
That is exactly what I told you.
Yes, ma'am.
It is still the government, all the federal universities are owned by the government.
Yes, ma'am.
So the government is the one that should look at all that is spent. They have the budget they pay to the universities now every year. So it's just a question of doing a sort of division and knowing this is what we spend on these students per year. Now, if I come to the conclusion that I spend 4 million totally on each university student per year, and I now want the students to contribute to it, I want to recover, like I said, cost recovery. I'm not planning on making a profit. I might say that I want to test the waters and do a modeling, and I say that in the first year, I want to recover at least
it's 19 hours,
maybe 25% of that, so that I reduce my subsidy by that 25%. That will be the basis for me to tell the universities to charge this amount of money as fees. Because I am still the person who pays the piper. But I would have been able to reduce my subsidy, my cost. Then if I test the waters and I see that the students are fine, nobody is making noise, in another 2 years, I might increase my loan and increase the fees to like about 3 million, thereby again reducing my subsidy. I'm saying that what is the purpose of the student loan? Because if it is to save indigent, if it's just a largesse to help parents, then you are retaining your own subsidy. That means you've achieved nothing. You have achieved nothing at all from the federal government point of view. All you have done is you've done something that will make you nice to parents and probably give you electioneering votes because you were able to take responsibility from parents for paying their children allowance. If that is your policy, I haven't got a problem with it. But let me